Hey, Power Athlete Nation. Welcome to the premier podcast in strength conditioning, Power Athlete Radio. I'm joined by my guest host, Mr. Chris McQuilkin, a.k.a. Tex.
Howdy.
I'm John Wellborn, CEO for Power Athlete, and this is Power Athlete Radio, and we are excited to come to you with another Brew with the Crew episode where we are going to take questions from the hotline and we are going to answer them. So we did this little segment where we set up this hotline where if you're curious, you can always leave us a message. You can text us. You can also send smoke signals to 929-464-464. 929-ING-ING-0. Yeah. So that's our hotline. If you got a question, you got something, if you're following one of the Power Athlete programs like Grindstone, Field Strong, Jack Street, Hammer, any of the programs out there, and you got questions, submit us some inquiries. Leave us a voicemail at the hotline, and we will be more than happy to answer them. But I feel like I'm going to have to address the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Well, there's a lot of new things in the room besides the gorilla.
Yeah, well, we don't have a gorilla, but I'm sure we'll find one. So there could be one lurking within here. But we decided this actually started a couple months ago. We ended up going and having lunch with the guys from Drinking Bros, who have a pretty big podcast. And we went over and checked out their sound studio and where they do Drinking Bros podcast here in Austin. And one of the first questions they asked us about Power Athlete Radio was, what's the video look like? And at that time, we were really only doing audio, like most people doing podcasts, just pushing out the audio. But with Joe Rogan moving to Spotify and YouTube and all that, I feel like the video game has really come up within recent time. And, Dan from Drinking Bros was like, hey, if you are not doing video, you are leaving a ton on the table and you're missing the opportunity to start influencing people and really push Power Athlete Radio. So at that point, we said, man, let's step it up a little bit. A little. Reached out to, one of our, smartest people, most creative people we know, Harry Heppenstall, is branding for Power Athlete. And
also an avid listener of the podcast.
Also an avid listener, longtime follower, never left us a question on the hotline, but yet hits me with hundreds of questions a day. Everything. Questions everything else. And he pulled in some of his contacts that did a rendering for us. And this is the rendering that they came up with. And then it was thrust upon me to try to execute the rendering as close as possible. We're still waiting on a couple little knicknacks, a few pieces of flair to tie the whole room in, which unfortunately we had a lot of rain here the last couple of days. That got slowed down with the Pony Express. But so we'll be adding a few things. But for the most part, we ended up getting a big neon sign from our buddies at Neon Sign up in North Austin. Knocked that out.
Not just a clever name, I guess.
Yeah, no, those guys are legit. And then obviously, to take the mantra of Be the Hammer to a whole new level, we have created a wall of hammers. So I jumped on eBay, got on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, found a whole different collection of old and new hammers and tried to do a montage of hammers. As you guys see, the wall of skulls over there. Little known fact, though, all of those skulls come from this very property. So those are the $3 I've taken in the last 3 years. The first year I was here, I didn't hunt. And then every year I've taken a pretty nice buck. So I got those up there. And then that's that big boar that I killed last year. So, but we got some other stuff coming in. And then obviously there's a shovel back there. And I have a special spoon coming to match it. And so what we've done is we've tried to take all the different, pieces of Power Athlete from Be the Hammer, Move the Dirt and all the different kind of, Eat the Week, all the other pieces, and just kind of incorporated them into a new and improved, new designed experience for Power Athlete Radio.
Oh, and it's hot. And if you want to see it and you're listening to this, tune into Power Athlete Radio on YouTube.
And also Spotify. That's right. Yeah, we can load video to Spotify too. So it's pretty cool, man. It's definitely, when I saw the rendering, I was like, this is going to be not easy to replicate, but I went and repaneled the whole room, found a really dark color for it, and nailed it up, did all the trim pieces, got everything hung, tried to really match it the best we could. And it's always neat to have somebody show you, like, hey, this is what it's supposed to look like, and then trying to get within 99% and really reduce that margin of error and see if we hit it. So I think we did a pretty good job.
Much like a squat.
Much like lifting weights, much like playing football, much like driving 200 miles an hour in a car. Everything is margin of error.
Crushed it.
So with that being said, let's roll into our first question from our loyal listener via the hotline.
Ready?
Let's do it.
It is a text message from 919. All right. Thanks for all you guys do. Love the content. I train high school athletes, all sports, but mostly football, and I'm looking for help on how to balance their training in school with the training I do with them. There seems to be very little planning involved in their current program. For example, I'll have a squat and press day with Bedrock programmed, and then they come in having squatted a 1RM that morning. What are some of the best practices for managing this and programming effectively for my kids? Thanks.
Well, we got a few issues here. Obviously, he's running a private facility that, he's working with high school age kids that are also involved in their sport, which also has some form of weightlifting component in it. Like, let's just, say it's football. So in the off season, there isn't a football team in America or even the world that probably doesn't have some form of off-season strength and conditioning program being led by somebody like a coach or, a paid volunteer or somebody who implements a program. So he's in kind of an interesting space in that he is applying, probably what I think would be the most beneficial program that I've ever come across for that age group of individuals, Bedrock, which if you guys are curious, you can check it out at powerathletehq.com/bedrock. One of our training programs follows a basic linear progression. We've used this program tried and true in the amateur progression for CrossFit football for almost 10 years. And the amount of stories and really just things that I've connected with, we taught close to 300 seminars around the globe, and the amount of stories that we got from people that followed that basic linear progression on CrossFit football and then came to the seminar to discuss what happened. I kick myself for not having a camera to set up all these testimonials. Not that we were video adverse, but I think so many times you're caught in the moment and you don't have your camera guy over your shoulder setting this up. And I don't think we had the wherewithal because we were just trying to survive, 2 days anywhere in the world and go teach a seminar. To not have a camera set up to catch these testimonials, I feel like was really my largest regret with all this, is not being able to capture the stories. And, part of our partnership with CrossFit was they were supposed to handle the media. They were supposed to send cameras on site, record the media, and really that was what our percentage and our partnership was put on them. They posted on the site, they let us use the name, and then they capture the media because, as I was told, at the time, CrossFit was a media company. They were about generating content and pushing it out, and that was their focus. And so I kind of just naively believed that they would collect that, provide it for us, and then be a partnership. Unfortunately, in 10 years or 9 years, they only released one video and maybe 2 short little videos, all of which were one of you and one of Ben Oliver and none of me. So
good?
No, it's a barometer for how to not be a shitty partner and how not do your business. If you're invested in somebody and somebody is carrying your flag and doing your brand and doing these things and you promise, make good on it. Our Block One network, the things we're working on them for the remote coaching and the clinics and all the stuff that we're getting to try to empower these guys to go out there and do well. You have to be a good partner. And if capturing media, and that's what you say you're going to do, to be able to capture that media and just not sit on it like a vault because you're, a fucking immature, spoiled child who, doesn't know how to react to good information, isn't a quality partner. So taking a steer, let me bring this right back. So
being a good partner for your clients.
Yeah. So with this individual using something like Bedrock is extremely intelligent. The problem becomes you have to balance that with how do you maximize performance for your athletes and not be a cancer or viewed as an asshole on the team. So I dealt with this exact problem, and it didn't, while it panned out for me, it could have gone very poorly. So I'll just give you a hint. I played football at Palos Verdes High School. They closed my high school and they consolidated the 3 high schools in the area into one, mega high school. And the coach from our rival became the head coach, and it was up at Rolling Hills. Gary Kimbrell was the head coach. He had been, our rival at Palos Verdes for decades, and there was a lot of bad blood over a lot of years. And so we show up, And I was, obviously had lifted weights down there, but had started lifting weights with Zangus. And we would go train 3, 4, 5 nights a week with Zangus. My training partner was a guy named Tasso Papadakis. And Tasso and I would go lift weights, and we just training at the high school with what they were doing was so far removed from what we were doing that we just kind of showed up, kind of wasted our time, not wasted, but just kind of pretend like we were doing stuff, and then we cut and we went and did our real training. And you can get away with that for a little bit, but we had a strength coach, guy named Jim Rundell, and Gary and Jim have since passed away. But he, noticed very quickly that we weren't doing this stuff, comes and approaches us. And, hey, and just being honest, I was like, I train with the same guy I've been training with, George Zangus, and he knew George, and they, I think Jim had owned a gym, and it was, of course, these guys had, lived in the same area their whole lives. So they were somewhat rivals too. And all of a sudden he tells the head coach, and now all of a sudden I'm a fucking bad guy. I'm a cancer because I'm not doing their training. And the head coach, Gary Kimbrell, was kind of a vindictive dude in a lot of ways, in that when I started playing varsity and that whole deal, I started getting letters from school. So that's how they contacted you. They wrote a letter, sent it to your head coach. The head coach gave it to you. You filled out the information and sent it back. And they started sending letters to me. And one of my buddies who was his TA in the mornings would go pick up his mail, and he's like, hey, you're getting these letters. Is he giving them to you? And I was like, no. He's like, how about I just give them to you, or you go get them? So I would walk in the office every morning, go to where his mailbox is, and just pull out my letters, fill them out, and send them back. And so that's how I started communicating with these coaches, and they started getting cut-ups. I started getting recruited in this whole deal. And then I played my senior year, finished the last game. After the last game, we come in, film study deal. He comes over and hands me a bunch of letters and goes, hey, I've been holding on to these. I didn't want you to get distracted. And they were 3 years old.
Oh.
And at this point, I'd already got scholarship offers.
Signing day's come and gone.
Yeah. I mean, dude, signing day was 2 months away. I was already scheduled to take my trips. I had already taken pre-trips. I'd gone out to Colorado. I'd gone out and seen other schools. So it was kind of ironic. And I remember thinking thanks. And well,
that is a danger for this gentleman's athletes.
So what I'm saying is, you have to balance by doing a very effective training system that is going to be met with some kind of resistance because it's not, their system. But yet you don't want to get viewed as a cancer, and you don't want to get into a situation where now all of a sudden people are doing things vindictive against you. The age old, I didn't play because my coach didn't like me. Well, my coach legitimately didn't like me, but he couldn't keep me off the field because I was one of the best players. So it was kind of a catch-22, but he found other ways to try to screw me. But I'm a little more resourceful than that, and I'm not going to allow that to fucking derail me. So with this, what I would recommend is kind of acquiescing a little bit as the private coach and being like, here's the deal. I don't want this training to negatively affect your future as an athlete, because sometimes high school coaches and sometimes people can be vindictive and, cut off their nose to spite their face. Or let's say a guy's okay, but not kind of borderline. They might give the tap just because so-and-so had done the training and showed himself to be a team guy. Mm-hmm. So there has to be a balance. Do I have the perfect solution for you? No. Probably it's going to be a little bit of both. So you're probably going to have to tell those kids, hey, you need to go in and do your coach's program and absolutely kill it. And then you're going to have to come here, and we're going to have to probably reduce the volume a little bit at certain points in the year to try to, go with some recovery stuff. Or, if these kids have the wherewithal and they have the, enough lead in their pencil, man, they might just have to do double days and suffer through it, which is what we did. I remember one of our sprint workouts, one of Gary Kimbrell's sprint workouts was 16 220s. So you would run basically half the track, 440. Yeah. So, 400 meter track. So you run 200, walk 200, and then run 200.
Yeah. And sprint the straights.
It was
sprint the curves.
Yeah, it was sprint the curves.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was like a weird, you'd basically run this way, so you would do like half and half. So you basically
a NASCAR driver.
Yeah, and of course, it's not like halfway through we switched and ran the other way, no, because that would be too smart. But that was a pretty standard Monday sprint workout. The problem is, how many of those can you really run fast? Maybe one. And it ends up looking like 4 miles of sprints and walks. I mean, it's just a ton of volume that, that's your idea of sprint development. It was 220s.
Yeah. So I've been on both sides of this. One as a high school strength and conditioning coach, and then kids going to private. And now,
how did you deal with that?
Well, I'm getting into, and now a sport coach, but pulling kids in to train through the garage and offering that up to them. Both times, I aim to get the kids. I need the program that coach wants, so I need to pull in and do what they're doing because I'm more resourceful than I happen to know the private strength and conditioning coach that my high school kids were going to. It was a baseball guy. And then for now, I don't know the coaches yet, but that is my goal, certainly to get to know the high school coaches in my community to find out what the hell they're doing and develop a relationship with them. But now I ask the kids, like, hey, what'd you do today? Bring in the program. Because one practice this season with lacrosse, the kids were just not there. It was a horrible warm-up, and then beginning with the skill work, not good. Just call a timeout on the whole practice plan of the day and ask them what the hell is going on. It was a 1RM day. Oh. So squats, deadlifts, power cleans, all in one day. And I'm not mad at the kids.
No, but like, I mean, we've put out like
right.
I realize a lot of these guys are really just kind of going off of like, I don't even know what the fuck they're thinking. I mean, there is a certain level of training and adaptation and experience and just time under the barbell that is required to effectively lift a 1RM. The problem is when you bring in and you ask kids who are not adept at lifting weights that have not the mileage under the bar to lift a 1RM, it's not anywhere near like accurate. It's so far off base that it just becomes a waste. And then what they're doing is they're trying to build a percentage-based program. And
most likely, we don't know.
Well, think about there's only one reason to test 1RMs, so you can figure out what a percentage-based program is. What we've shown over the last 20 plus years is that percentage-based programs for beginners are a complete waste of time. That's why we test, or we use 5 RMs. We use 5 rep maxes for these kids, basic linear progression. And we've seen that the kids that follow this basic linear progression, like we've seen on Bedrock, make leaps and bounds better progress than they do, going off a percentage-based program. Because at the percentage, it has to start from somewhere. When you take 80% of something, you have to have a number. Mm-hmm. And it's not like these coaches are jiggy enough to be like, all right, well, let's base these percentages off of 5 RMs or 10, or 7s or 4s or something else. It's just, and it's not lazy. It's just the fact that sport coaches look at like strength conditioning and performance as kind of an add-on. Well, I'm a sport coach. Oh, they got to lift some weights. Okay, great. I'm just going to go instead of like sitting down and being like, all right, let me consult actually people that do this. I'm just going to borrow something and I'm going to just implement something on that, somebody else puts out instead of sitting down and reaching out to people and being like, hey man, like how does this physiology work? So much so that we've had coaches follow our program with incredible results and then not tell their competitors what they were doing because they don't want them to get an advantage.
Yeah. So there's so much going in, and you need to protect your athletes first. And I need you to ask your kids, whatever you can do, get the program to bring it in. If it is not a printout or it's not available online, then whatever whiteboard day they got, freaking take a picture of it and see if you can pick up on the strength program patterns. If it says percentages, okay, well, you need to aim to now protect it. Second question I have for you, what are you telling your parents? Are you promoting, hey, we're going to increase athleticism, power, strength, speed, or are you pitching injury prevention? Mm. You need to stick to what you're saying. So if it is strength, we need to find different ways, and this is where their program comes into play. I can almost bet that the coaches are not doing frontal plane or a lot of trunk work and dead bugs and different patterning drills. So we can improve. By improving coordination, we're improving strength and almost doing the best job you can working around shitty strength training, and you're going to get zero praise. All the sport coaches or whomever is applying the program are going to think it's their program, but at the same time, your athletes will find success on the field. And you'll know, sir. So find out as much as you can about the program they are doing. Whatever you are telling the parents, stick to it and do your damnedest to accomplish said goal. If it is injury prevention, and that becomes now injury prevention in the weight room for their high school training, not just the field for there. And man, talk to the parents, and I would suggest this fall you start going to the games. And if you can, aim to develop a relationship with this coaching staff and then say, hey, I'm Johnny's strength and conditioning coach. How's his footwork? How's his speed? And then they'll start to say, hey, you know what? To 1 year or, 6 months down the line, Susie needs better footwork. This kid coached Johnny up. I'm going to send him there. So it can potentially lead to more. But the minute you start, you cannot and absolutely not speak negatively about the program that the kids are doing to the kids.
Yeah, don't shit on it. Kids are honest.
Yeah.
You'll see this when you guys have your own kids, or maybe you do. The level of honesty that kids provide. Like my wife and I have had conversations in front of our kids, and then all of a sudden the kids will say something and all of a sudden the people come over, you run into them, and the kids are like, oh, I guess, and you're like, don't say that. Oh, so-and-so's getting a divorce, and you're talking about it, and the kids are like, oh, I heard
how's that divorce?
Yeah, how's that divorce going? And you're like, mother of God. So I had to tell the kids, I'm like, hey, when you hear mommy and daddy talking about something, don't repeat it to people. So same thing, take that same approach and be like, hey, if instead of looking at what the coach is doing and being like and shitting on it because it's probably stupid, just be like, hey, you know what? Not the way I do it, but I'll tell you we're going to work around it. Funny story on hammer. Some guy posted the other day a comment of like, why do we do dead bugs? I'm so tired of doing these dead bugs. And the guy was like complaining about the dead bugs. And like, and I didn't even get a chance to respond. Somebody's like, all this is doing is bringing more dead bugs on us. Stop
Seriously.
with this.
That's my first thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
More dead bugs.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm like, oh, you want more cowbell? You know what this needs? More cowbell. Just like you know what the wall needs? More hammers. And if you have a hammer sitting at home that you would like to donate to Power Athlete and maybe get put up on the wall, reach out, leave a question on the hotline, or hit us with an email at info@powerathlete, and we'll give you an address. And we definitely would always take some user-donated hammers if you get some cool-looking ones. Just don't go to like Home Depot and buy a normal hammer. If you get something
we want
gnarly,
hammer with a story.
Yeah, hammer with story, something that is character, something that is cool. I mean, I got a little one up there that we broke that I put just a little one up, so you can see it kind of up there. See the broken one?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, that hammer was actually I found in the dirt here on this property, and it was busted
great.
up. So, yeah. No.
And then our Callie Hinsman gifts engraved hammers at the top.
Yeah, years ago, Callie gave us hammers that say, be the hammer on it. So I throw those up there too. So there's a nice collection. So everything has a personal story associated with it.
Yes. And for our listener or caller or texter, we hope that all of your athletes one day have a story about such a great inspiration that they once had that empowered their performance.
Yep.
Talking about you, not their sport coaches.
True. All right.
Anything to add?
No.
All right, man. So plenty of advice there. Follow up, and then if you're not, get in the Power Athlete methodology because it's big on social intelligence, not only communicating to parents on the value of you and your action as a strength and conditioning professional, but also stepping in and communicating to sport coaches, hey, this is what we're doing for the purpose of transfer to the field, and then how to systematically break it down. And maybe one day you're hired by that school, contracted out to be their strength and conditioning professional.
We can only hope.
Boom. And if anyone else out there has any training-related questions, nutrition, professional development as a coach, we've been through a lot in that respect. John, where do they go?
PowerAthleteHQ.com/training, or you can go check us out at academy.powerathletehq.com. If you're into the methodology, we also got a trainer's course, and we got a ton of education. We got a bunch of new stuff. that we're hopefully in the works after we get a few other programs launched. And the one thing I'm really excited about are the clinics.
Oh, yeah.
So we did a test run of a basic strength and speed clinic here at Power Athlete for about 17 kids. We didn't really market it. We just kind of pushed it out for a couple weeks and ended up getting 17 kids that were, in that 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 age group, which I think is such a cool age group, especially to be influenced with this type of information. We brought them in. We did a bunch of strength training, a bunch of sprint progression, and just helping them, set a foundation. And the whole impetus behind this and really the push was to kind of create a model that we can push out to our Block 1 network, and now we can start offering these clinics, around the globe. We have 150 plus Block 1 coaches around the globe, and I would love to be able to go in and influence that group and get those guys action to start teaching these one day and at least get these kids set up and on the right track. And I think it's highly needed.
Yeah, and that was a personal mission. I knew a lot of the kids, coached a lot of those kids, and now they're set free into their summer football training program, and they're in a better position to survive.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if we got a chance to work with them for 6 months, it would be different. But if we can just get in there, influence them, talk to their parents, and just at least give them a chance, because I think all too often when kids get kind of thrown into this stuff, like especially in a big weight room, you might have one coach, 50 kids, and they're kind of running around. To at least give them the confidence to say, hey, I've done this. I got a little bit of coaching. I feel like I can move, and I have a resource to go back to in case I do have questions. So I'm really excited for that piece. And so keep an eye out for those. They'll be on powerathletehq.com. If you're subscribed to the newsletter, you can go on and throw your email in. If you're already there, you're going to be getting hit with it. So we're going to start pushing those out. Just look for a schedule of dates and locations, and you're going to see them pop up. And they're pretty cool. I mean, I'd love to get back to the point where actually Power Athlete got to go teach some adult stuff, because that was a lot of fun. But I feel like we can start with a really good demographic of those kids, and maybe we'll progress it into some other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I asked and answered.
Boom.
All right. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Power Athlete Radio.
Bye.
I'm going back. I'm a loaded freight train, and I'm right on track.